He had lost everything the day his world became confined to a wheelchair. But it wasn't until two barefoot orphan boys approached him on the street that he began to see a flicker of hope. One of the boys stretched out his hand and whispered, "I'll fix your legs if you promise to look after my brother." What seemed like an impossible vow turned into a miracle that forever altered their fates. Before we dive in, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from and what time is it in your part of the world? Also, don't forget to strike that like and subscribe button. Let's get started. The bustling city street buzzed with traffic, but to James, it was nothing more than a reminder of his fall from grace. Not long ago, he strode these same sidewalks, his shoes polished and meetings always on the horizon. He'd shake hands with the influential, always in control. Now, he silently rolled forward in his chair, the weight of it dragging him down with each push. His suit was still sharp, his face still held the confidence of a businessman, but inside he was empty. The pity in people's eyes was something he couldn't escape. They looked away the moment they saw him in the chair. He despised the feeling. He despised being invisible. And that's when he saw them. Two barefoot boys stood on the edge of the sidewalk, no older than 4 or 5. Their white shirts were worn and their denim overalls rolled up. The dust from the streets clung to their tiny feet, marking the paths they shouldn't have had to walk. One boy stayed close, clinging to his brother's arm as if the world was too vast for him. But the other stepped forward with an unusual calmness in his eyes. James slowed his chair, unsure of what to make of the moment. "Where are your parents?" he asked, his voice sharp, almost cold. He didn't mean to sound harsh, but his patience for random encounters had long since worn thin. The boy didn't flinch. Instead, he held out his small hand, fingers trembling yet firm. "I'll fix your legs," he said quietly, "if you promise to take care of my brother." James stopped dead in his tracks. His hands tightened around the wheels of his chair. The boy's words pierced him like a knife. Fix his legs. No doctor had ever managed that, and yet this barefoot child spoke as though it could be done. "What did you say?" James asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. The boy took a step closer. "I can't do it for real," he confessed, his eyes shining with something like hope. "But I can try. I can pray. I can hold your legs and believe." His voice softened. "But you have to promise me you won't leave him." He motioned toward his smaller twin, who stood silently, his lip quivering. James scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "Are you serious? Do I look like someone who can care for kids? I can't even take care of myself." His voice cracked with anger, revealing emotions he didn't know he still carried. The smaller boy edged closer to his brother, whispering, "He doesn't want us, Eli. He'll leave like the others." Eli's jaw clenched. He turned his gaze back to James. "Maybe, but maybe he won't. Look at him." He pointed toward James. "You're in that chair, but you still look strong. You still wear a suit. You still see us. Nobody else does." James blinked, stunned. The boy's words cut through his pride. He wanted to roll away, leave them behind, but his hand remained wrapped around Eli's tiny fingers. "Listen, kid," James muttered, shaking his head. "I don't have money for orphans. I don't have time for sob stories, and I sure as hell don't believe in miracles. Life doesn't work like that." Eli's grip tightened. "We know life doesn't work if nobody cares." His voice was steady, but James could see the tears threatening to fall. "My brother hasn't eaten since yesterday. I told him today would be better. I told him someone would stop." The smaller boy whimpered. "You said someone kind." James's stomach twisted. He wanted to yell at them, to push away and escape. But his throat tightened, memories flooding back. He remembered the nights after the accident, lying in a hospital bed, pleading with anyone, God, doctors, strangers, to make it better. But no one came. No one could fix him. And now here were two kids standing before him, offering the one thing he used to crave, belief. He tried to block it out. "You think I'm your savior?" he snapped. "I'm not. I have nothing left to give." "You have more than nothing. Noah fired back, surprising him with the strength in his voice. "You have a heart. You have arms. You have eyes that see, my brother. That's more than the world has given us." James's chest tightened. He swallowed hard, unable to speak. The smaller boy clung tightly to Eli, whispering, "He's going to leave, Eli. Don't beg him. He'll just get angry." Eli's lips quivered, but his gaze remained steady. "I don't care if he gets mad. He's listening. That's enough." Then, louder, eyes locked on James, he said, "If I kneel here and pray over your legs, will you at least think about us? Will you think about not leaving us out here in the cold tonight?" The words felt like a weight James couldn't shake. He wanted to shout at them to go away, but instead, his voice cracked. "Why me?" he whispered, almost to himself. Noah didn't hesitate. Because everyone else walked past. The noise of the street seemed to fade as James stood frozen, caught in the moment. James's breath hitched. He couldn't move. For the first time in years, he wasn't the one being ignored, he was the one being asked to save someone else. And the boy's hand stayed firmly in his. James sat frozen, Eli's small fingers still clutching his. The younger boy's wide, anxious eyes were filled with both fear and hope, waiting for James to make a choice. For a long time he didn't respond. He considered pulling away, fading into the crowd, pretending this never happened. But as he looked into those eyes, the trembling lips, the barefoot feet pressed into the rough pavement, something inside him snapped. "Fine," James muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "You can come with me. Just for tonight. Don't expect much. I'm not who you think I am." Eli's face softened in relief, and the smaller boy leaned into him, whispering, "He didn't leave." James wheeled himself forward, guiding them down the block. People watched as the twins followed him, their small hands brushing against the chair's wheels, almost as if afraid he'd vanish the moment they let go. When they reached his apartment, James hesitated. His life had been built around solitude since the accident. Empty rooms, no sounds, no distractions. But as he opened the door and let them in, the silence was broken for the first time in years. That night, James gave them his only food, stale bread and canned soup. The boys devoured it quickly, almost urgently. He tried not to watch, but guilt gnawed at him. He promised himself he'd figure something out in the morning, maybe find a shelter. But when he rolled toward his room, he found them kneeling beside his chair. "What are you doing?" he asked, irritated. Noah looked up at him. "Praying for your legs." James exhaled sharply. "Kid, I told you it's no use." He'd seen every doctor. Tried everything. Nothing worked. That's life. The boy's tiny hands pressed gently against James's legs. "Maybe the doctors can't," he whispered. "But maybe God can." James shook his head, but something about their persistence stopped him from pushing them away. Every night it was the same routine. After they ate whatever scraps James could scrounge up, the twins would kneel in front of him, their voices soft and childlike, asking heaven for the impossible. At first, James ignored it, even laughing bitterly to himself. But as the weeks passed, something began to shift. One morning, James felt a faint tingling in his calves. He froze, gripping the armrests of his chair. He told himself it was just his imagination. But the feeling returned the next day, sharper, undeniable. He didn't tell the boys at first, afraid to give them hope he didn't share. But Noah noticed. "You felt it, didn't you?" he asked, his eyes fixed on James's legs. James looked away. "It doesn't mean anything. Don't get your hopes up." But the twins didn't stop. Every night, their small hands pressed against his legs. Every night, their voices filled the apartment with prayers. And despite himself, James began to believe. He returned to physical therapy, something he had given up months ago. The therapist raised an eyebrow when he mentioned the tingling. "That's a good sign," she said cautiously. "It means the nerves aren't completely dead. But it'll take work, a lot of work." James hadn't done much work since the accident, not the kind that demanded both faith and pain. But with the twins watching, whispering their prayers, he pushed himself. Slowly, painfully, he began to move again. First small twitches, then shifting his feet, gradually bearing weight with braces. The days were long and the nights even longer. There were moments when he wanted to quit. But every time he sank into despair, the twins would kneel before him, their foreheads gently resting against his knees. "You can," Noah would whisper. "We believe you can." Months passed. The man who once despised being seen in a wheelchair now found strength in the unwavering belief of two small boys who refused to let him give up. Then one morning it happened. James stood. His legs trembled, his hands gripped the bars during therapy, but he stood. The boys shouted with joy, their little hands clapping together. James turned toward them, tears filling his own eyes. "I'm standing," he whispered. The therapist smiled, her eyes glistening. "Yes, James, you're walking again." It wasn't instant. It wasn't easy. But step by step, supported by faith he never thought he'd find, James walked. At home, the twins waited at the door every evening, their small feet tapping impatiently until he returned. The first night he walked through that door without his chair, the boys rushed to him, their arms wrapped tightly around his legs, sobbing into his trousers. James bent down and pulled them close. His voice trembled. "You healed me. Not my legs, my heart. And I promise I'll never let you go." For the first time since the accident, James no longer felt broken. And for the first time in their short lives, the twins no longer felt alone. Would you have stopped for those boys or kept walking? Tell us in the comments. We read every story. Like if this touched your heart. Subscribe for more true stories of hope, struggle, and second chances. Share this video. Someone you know needs to see this miracle.